What's going on, people? It's your boy Kelechi back with another episode of the Ramblin' Mind podcast. How are each and every single one of y'all doing today? I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all are staying safe. Man, we got a lot of news to get to this time around. There's a lot to get to this week. We have a bunch to get to. It's a lot to get to. And this episode is going to be a little bit different because at the same time that I'm recording the podcast, I'm trying to do something special. I went on YouTube and I decided, you know what? Let's go live. Let's try this whole live thing. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much for checking out the podcast. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment. Let me know where y'all are watching from. It would be very, very much appreciated. For everybody else listening to this podcast after the fact, thank you to each and every single one of y'all for checking out the podcast. But anyway, we got so much to get into. We got the fact that we have new trade agreements. We got some new IPO news from Airbnb. We got the fact that the virus is surging once again. We got some coronavirus vaccine news that's beautiful. But like we like to do it every single week, we start off with the question of the week. And the question for this week is, what is a free trade agreement? What is a free trade agreement? Put that down in the comments if you're watching online. If not, we'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to it. But we start with this. Everybody in this entire thing forgot everything else because the biggest news of the week is Tesla. Yes, Tesla dominating every single headline. Tesla is finally getting added to the S&P 500. They're finally being allowed into the exclusive club of blue chip stock companies. They're being added to a very limited group of companies, even though it's not that limited because it has about 500 companies on there. But regardless, it's kind of like the ultimate stamp of approval that you can have when you have a company. And Tesla finally got its stamp of approval by being added to the S&P 500. Now, first of all, for anybody who's asking, what is the S&P 500? First of all, where have you been? Where have you been? It means you haven't been listening to the Rambling Mind podcast. But if this is your first time around these parts, thank you so much for listening. We welcome all newcomers around these parts. As a matter of fact, go ahead and subscribe and leave a review on whatever platform that you're listening to this thing on. It would be very much appreciated. But the S&P 500 stands for a stock market index that tracks the 500 best companies in the United States. Sometimes it's more than 500. Right now, it's about 505 companies. But regardless, it is the 500 biggest and best companies in the United States. Who decides who gets on the stock market, gets on the S&P 500? Well, they have a committee called the Standards and Poor's Dow Jones Committee. They get together, they look at all the factors that you need to have in order to join the index, and then they add you into the index if they want you to be in the index. It is seen essentially as the stock market itself. A lot of times when people are saying, oh my God, the stock market is up today or the stock market is down today, usually they're referring to the S&P 500. Sometimes they're referring to the Dow Jones, but most of the time they're referring to the S&P 500 index. So Tesla being added to the index basically is a stamp of approval that Tesla is a worthwhile company to be invested in. Of course, with this news, Tesla stock completely went to the moon. It got on a SpaceX rocket and went all the way to Mars before we can even go to Mars. But regardless, it was launched. It went just like the SpaceX rocket that was launched on Sunday that went to the moon. Well, Tesla went past the moon, went all the way to Mars. Actually, they didn't go to the moon. They just went to the International Space Station. But regardless, the fact is, it was big. It was very, very big. Getting into the S&P 500 is not that easy. There are certain requirements that you have to meet in order to get into the S&P 500. Think of it like the minimum requirements for you to even get a job interview. And those minimum requirements are: your shares must be a public company. You must be a publicly traded company. You must be at least worth $8.2 billion. And shares must be easily traded on like the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. You must be a United States company. And at least 50% of your stock must be available for public trading. Now, this is the hard part for most people that are trying to join the S&P 500 to meet the minimum requirement. And the minimum requirement is you have to have at least positive earnings in the last 5 or 4 quarters. Tesla actually did it for the last 5 quarters. And that was the most difficult thing for Tesla, because if you have been listening to me at all on any of the podcasts we've done in the past, one of the things that Tesla struggled with was profitability. For years, Tesla has not been able to be profitable. But now, however, it was finally profitable. So that was the minimum stuff that you have to meet in order to get on the S&P 500. Those are the minimum requirements that you need to meet if you wanted to join the S&P 500. And it met those minimum requirements. But just because you meet the minimum requirements doesn't mean that you're going to get the job, right? Everybody goes for different job interviews. We meet all the requirements. They look at our resume and they say, okay, we would like to interview you. And basically, Tesla got to the interview stage. And the first time around, Tesla didn't get added. That was last quarter. Tesla didn't get added. A lot of people lost faith in it. A lot of people was like, oh, how dare they not add Tesla to it? But regardless, Tesla is in it now. This is like an early Christmas gift to Elon Musk. Tesla will be added to the S&P 500 by December 21st is what all the news outlets say. So this is big news. It's massive news for anybody who's a Tesla investor. It's massive news for anybody who follows Tesla as a company. It's just overall massive, massive, massive all around. And because of this news, Elon Musk actually became the 3rd richest man in the world, passing both Zuck and Bill Gates, which is just amazing. But apart from Tesla actually joining, in order for Tesla to join the index, somebody has to come off the index. So let me know, who do you think will actually be removed from the S&P 500? My money right now is on some of the oil companies that are on there that have been failing on the bottom 500. So we'll see, though. We'll see who actually gets to be on the S&P 500.